Well, good day team, welcome back to another Rugby League video. This is all about the NRL round 26. I'll give you my preview of every game, my tips and picks. This is the penultimate round of the NRL as we get much closer to the finals. There is a lot on the line still, so many permutations that are in front of us, or possibilities. The wooden spoon's not sewing up. We do know the minor premiers, however. So I've put quite a bit of work into this one, so let's get into it. I don't want to muck around. We've got the Cowboys versus Storm in the first game of the round. Storm obviously first, Cowboys ranked 6, pretty comfortably in the top 8 there. Cowboys strong favourites. Bellyache, Craig Bellamy has mixed up his team dramatically, and that affects my fantasy team, unfortunately. I thought I had one more week before the rest started to happen, but the Panthers let me down last week in that sense. The Storm have now wrapped up the minor premiership. There's a ton of changes. Jerome Hughes, Harry Grant, Will Warbrick, Jack Howarth, Nick Meaney, Nelson Asofa Solomona, Josh King, Sean Bloor, Eli Katoa, Trent Leero, and Tui Kamakamitha. All out. Ryan Pappenhausen and Cameron Munster will play. Meaney is actually on the extended bench or the reserve list, so he could potentially play. Still plenty of NRL experience with that lineup. Go have a look. I'm not going to read the lineup out, but the Cowboys are favourites, and that is fair. They're at home. They're just coming off a bye. They are 2 wins from the top 4, so they can't drop out of the top 8, but I don't think they can make the top 4. They're coming off a bye, and they'll want to find a bit of form as they lead into the finals. I've got Cowboys 13 plus here, and then I also think they'll cover the line, which is 12.5. So I'll take the Cowboys minus there, and then we've got the Bulldogs versus Seagulls on Friday night. The Bulldogs slight favourites here. The line's 4.5. The Bulldogs captain Stephen Crichton has been suspended after his head contact on Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, which is a bit of a joke, really, considering he didn't get sin-binned at the time. Kurt Mann is out with a broken clavicle. I don't know if I've said that right, but his season is over. He's gone. Seagulls, they're coming off a loss to the last place Tigers, which was quite the unpredicted result, really, and certainly changes things a little bit for that wooden spoon. Corey Waddell has been suspended for 2 games, but Tommy Talau is back from injury, so he goes into the centres. It's hard to back the Seagulls in this one after their performance last week. They can't get knocked out of the top 8 now. The Bulldogs are looking pretty comfortable, but still with a chance of making the top 4. The Seagulls are a team, though, that could trouble any team on their day, apart from maybe the Storm. It's hard to see anyone beating the Storm at the moment. But I think Bulldogs they'll put a lot into this game to secure a win and that minimum of 5th spot if they do. I've got the Bulldogs 1-12. I think it'll be a close one, but I still think they will score a try more than the Seagulls, so they should cover that line. But they'll have to start a lot better than they did against the Warriors back in New Zealand last week. You got the Panthers versus Rabbitohs. Panthers are 4th at the moment. They've dropped to 4th from 2nd after their loss last week to the Raiders. They want to bounce back from that loss. They normally do. They normally bounce back after a loss. They've lost 2 in a row, though, it's worth pointing out, but they are strong favourites here, strong favourites. The Rabbitohs don't have much to offer. The line is 16.5. Sania Taruva and Paul Alamotti return, and Dane Laurie and Casey McLean are out. Rabbitohs' best player last week, Cameron Murray, is out. His season's over. He's been suspended. He didn't get off his... trying to reduce his suspension last night at the judiciary. Cody Walker is back, however. Panthers, they'll be pretty fired up after losing 2 in a row. I'm expecting Dylan Edwards to have a big game in this one. He's returned from injury for the last 2 weeks, and the Panthers have lost both of those. Okay, the Storm loss, that was a massive game. But yeah, look, I'm expecting him to fire right back up. And now the Panthers will want to stay in the top 4 here. I don't think they should have any problems. Let's be fair, they should win pretty comfortable. I've got Panthers 13 plus. I think they get into a lead and potentially rest some of their players, the likes of Yeo. He should get a bit of a rest late in the game. And but I think I'll take the Rabbitohs line here at plus 16.5. The Panthers haven't been able to cover the line in the past 5 games in Sydney. So look, I know I think it's quite a lot there, but I do think that that's a pretty tough call. The Panthers are going to be pretty fired up here for this one. Eels versus Dragons. Dragons are favourites naturally. However, it's a pretty close game, but you know, by all accounts from the bookies' point of view, at 3.5 at the line being 3.5. Dragons, the only team in the top 8 at risk of dropping out of the top 8. I think the top 7 there is locked in now. Teams have only changed 1 player each on the bench, so not too many changes there, personnel changes. And the Eels just fell short against the Broncos up in Suncorp Stadium last week. It took a bit of, I think Adam Reynolds really sort of took the game away from them, but the Broncos managed to hold on. But yeah, the Eels have found a bit of form in the last month or so. They're pretty competitive, although they have lost 9 of their last 10 games. The Dragons have much more to play for, of course, wanting to keep that eighth spot. And there's 4 teams hot in their heels with one win behind. The Eels are at home though, so I think it should keep it close. I've got the Dragons 1-12, but I think the Dragons, they'll be pretty fired up, so they should cover the line here at only 3.5, which they have done in the last 9 matches following a loss. So I'm going to go that way. Dragons to remain in the top 8. Dolphins versus Broncos. I think this has got to be the game of the round, doesn't it? The odds are strongly in favour of the Broncos, and the line is 8.5. It is at Suncorp, but it's a home game for the Dolphins. However, the Broncos are going to feel like it's a home game. Cody Nikorima and Jesse Bromwich are out for the Dolphins. Unfortunately for them, Payne Haas is listed in the reserves. And the Broncos are still with both teams are 9th and 10th, aren't they? They're 1 win out of the top 8. So, but yeah, the Broncos are especially going to want Payne Haas to be back. But you definitely think this is the game of the round. Adam Reynolds played a absolutely key role in their last win against the Eels. The Dolphins have lost 4 of their last 5. It could be worse than that, but 4 of their last 5 at least. They really need to find a way to win after such a pretty good, impressive season. Both teams are on the same points as I said, so 1 win out of the top 8. They'll need the Dragons to slip up, which I don't suspect will happen this week. But yeah, look, I think this will be probably slightly closer than the odds suggest here. And, you know, a couple of injuries don't help to the Dolphins, but I think they'll be right in this game. I'm predicting Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow to have a pretty big game. He hasn't played well since I brought him into my fantasy team a few weeks ago. I think he'll score a try, and I think maybe 2. It's probably worth looking at him scoring a couple. I still think the Broncos win this one though, 1-12, but less than the 8.5 line, and I think that the Dolphins cover the spread there. Sharks versus Warriors. Sharks 3rd at the moment. Warriors way down at 14th. Sharks strong favourites, and Sharks have been unsurprising in terms of their form of late, in my opinion. The line is 14.5, and all eyes will be on Nico Hines this week on whether he plays or not. Sione Katoa and Siosifa Talakai, they return, which is pretty good considering Jesse Ramian is out suspended, so Talakai will go into that centre position. The Warriors are struggling again in the centre position, but losing both starting centres from last week, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck and Adam Pompey. Charles Nickel-Clockstead goes to one of those centre spots. He has plugged a lot of holes this year. Sean Johnson against his old club. He played pretty well against the Sharks last time, I think. Or I might be thinking of last year. But the Sharks have played really well without Hines. They had a really, really strong final 20 minutes, or 22 minutes against the Dragons last week. And they are holding on to that top 4 spot pretty well at the moment. I thought my prediction was that with Nico Hines getting injured, the Sharks would lose a couple. The Bulldogs would get above them on the table, but that hasn't happened. But yeah, look, I expect all the steam, well, if there was any anyway, to have gone out of the Warriors by now, and I think that the Sharks win this one comfortably. I'm predicting Hines starts, kicks a ton of goals, Sharks win 13 plus, they cover the line at 14.5 as well. I think this will be a bit of a blowout. If I'm honest, I can't see it any other way. But I don't know. You never know. I think after the season that the Warriors have had and all of the hype of last week, I think that they're done. Knights versus Titans. Knights strong favourites here. Titans clearly out of the top 8 race now. The line is 9.5. It's a home game for the Knights on a Sunday afternoon. Knights they've lost both edge forwards, Kaipes Paul and Tyson Frizzell, to injury, but Bradman Best is back, so that means Dylan Lucas goes back into the edge to fill one of those spots. AJ Brimson's season is over. He's going to have surgery, a pretty unfortunate return from injury for him over the last couple of weeks. The Titans have really sort of dropped off in form. Phil Sami will take his centre spot, otherwise no changes. Titans out of the top 8, like I said. But yeah, the Knights certainly still in it. They are one of those 4 teams that are 1 win out of the top 8. They won't go, the Knights, if they win, they wouldn't go past the winner of the Broncos or Dolphins game. Because either points differential, I think either one of those teams will still stay in front of the Knights. But yeah, at home Sunday afternoon, Ponga's back in form. I'm expecting the Knights to win pretty comfortably here, 13 plus, and to cover that line of 9.5. Titans run as well and truly over. They've lost their last 3 matches by 13 or more points, and that's why I'm picking that. The Knights will cover that line. Roosters versus Raiders. Roosters second at the moment on points differential, though second, third and fourth are all in the same points in the ladder. Raiders 12th, but they are still in that top 8 hunt. 1 win out of the top 8 after their big win against the Panthers last week in Canberra. Connor Watson and Brandon Smith return, but unfortunately they lose Joseph Suali'i and Jared Waerea-Hargreaves. Hargreaves suspended again after I think 1 game back, but the same 17 for the Raiders after their big upset. The line is 14.5. Roosters strong favourites here. The Roosters will want to put this one away. They're still playing for a top 4 spot in a way. Raiders, they're still one out of the top 8, but look, I just can't see any way for the Raiders to beat the Roosters. The Roosters are just too strong at the moment, and I feel like they could beat pretty much anyone, but from maybe the Storm. But yeah, look, I think the Raiders keep this close because, of course, they are still in the competition. However, I think their season will be over. I'm going Roosters 1-12 here. I think the Raiders. I'll pick the Raiders line at plus 14.5, which they have done in each of their last 4 games against the Roosters in Sydney. The only other team in the NRL is the Tigers. They are on a bye. The Eels drop down to bottom position here because I don't think the Eels win. And the Tigers will get 2 points for the bye. But they play each other next week. So if the Eels win that game, they'll be level on points. But I think the Eels' points differential is slightly stronger. So that last game of the round for those 2 teams should be a cracker. And I'm predicting the Dolphins win, of course, and then only the Knights and the winner of the Dolphins versus Broncos game will be still within a chance of making that top 8 next week. So either the Dolphins or Broncos lose. That's it for them because I think the Dragons winning be 2 wins ahead of the loser of that game. I think the Knights will just stay 1 win behind the Dragons, and the Raiders, they'll lose and they'll be 2 wins out of the top 8 and their season is done. Let me know what you think. It's going to be a pretty exciting round and finish to the home and away season. Looking forward to seeing how that top 8 finishes, and then I'll make a video on, because I had made a prediction video a few weeks ago. It's close, but certainly how the results have gone has been pretty unpredictable. I'm sure there's going to be still a few upsets this week. I don't think it's all going to go to plan. Let me know if you think I'm on track with some of my predictions. If you have watched, thank you, and hope you enjoy the footy this weekend. Cheers.